Okay, everybody, I got two topics to talk about this fine evening. No, don't worry yourself why I'm wearing these sunglasses. That'd be like asking why Dr. Randy McCarran wears a damn Canadian fedora on his head. It just is what it is. And these are some damn fine glasses. First topic. The United States, 1911. It fires a Colt ACP round, and it is not an easy gun to break down. And you can take a Glock, be upside down with your eyes closed, and pop that son of a bitch apart within 5 seconds. Now, why can't you do that with 1911? Well, it's very easy. Our hands ain't quite as tough as they were in the First World War. I'll give you an example. What you can't really tell is right here. This little ring has to be pressed in. There's actually a piece around the barrel here. You can see it. And it kind of hooks on with a U shape around that ring. Let me show you what happens. If you got true grip, you can push that little ring down and then rotate this son of a bitch. And then, under pressure, spring pressure, this little piece comes out. Then the spring. I cheated. I ain't gonna lie. My hands ain't quite as tough as them guys out there in the trenches, because I grew up on a computer. Now, what you will find is that little piece I was pointing out here can rotate. You rotate that little thing around. When you hit just the right spot, that sucker will slide out. Now does it start to make sense? Now you got 1911 with no spring. Then you gotta push this catch here. This is your slide catch. You gotta slide it back, and the side lines up perfectly with this itty bitty little groove that you barely can tell exists in the slide. This little sucker pops out. That's your slide catch. Now, you still have your safety here. With your safety up, the slide rolls right off. Then you've got your guide rod, pops right out of your slide this way. But the barrel, unlike Glocks, unlike XDs, unlike MPs, unlike all the new automatic pistols, it only comes out one way. And that way is down the barrel. Now, if you've got a newer type of gun, the barrel piece will slide back and come out. Now you've got your slide. Oil here, oil here. Oil here, oil here. You'll notice all these points are points of friction. Oil them all. Do not over oil your trigger or your hammer, because what happens is mistakes. Make sure that you oil this, because this little piece of the 1911 contains most of the friction and action. In fact, when it comes to ejecting the shell, reloading the shell, and reactivating the slide, all that happens along this in the spring. So be generous. You won't hurt it. Now, with this little piece, this is just a cap. You can put a couple of drops of oil in it. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. This is your barrel. This is where all the loving happens to your cartridge. So you need to make sure that you thoroughly clean this. If you fire a single round, you need to swap it out, you need to use a brush, you need to do whatever you got to do to clean that barrel out. This, that right there, locks around this little piece, and all the action happens on there. So, you know, if you fire it a few times, don't be afraid to put a drop of water. All right, not too much. Not too much. Now, that's how you break down 1911. It's not nearly as simple as an XD or an M&P or a Glock. Now, you've still got some other things here. Now, I took and put some hose grips on mine. Now, it was not easy because there's actually sockets that these little Allen screws screw into. And if they're cross-threaded, like this Kimber 1911's was on this one right here, you're going to have some trouble. But you can figure it out if you got some damn tools. Just don't be afraid. Just do what you got to do. Oil everything. If there's any little holes, just put on mild, not a generous, but a very small amount of oil. Work everything out, and then put it back together. So here we go. We're going to start putting it back together. You can look down in here. You can see there's a little hole. What you want to do is get that hole to line up with that little ring that was dangling from the barrel. It won't be easy at first because you got to get the slide just right. There we go. The trickiest part is this little pin that pokes off here. Now, it's a bearing. That's not a technical term. That's my term for it. It's a small bearing that comes off of the safety. There's a horizontal bar here, spring-loaded bearing on the end of it. You gotta get that bearing to retract back a little bit, and then you can actually push this piece back down in there. There you go. Now, here comes the fun part. The spring-loaded part. The part we all know and love as owners of the 1911. Get your thing on there, get it crooked, drop your spring in. I don't even know if this is right or not, but I like the nice square end going in first. And then the cap. Now, push the cap in. That takes a little bit of elbow grease and some calluses on the old fingertips to get that in there. Bada bing. You now have a 1911 that functions. And that sumbitch will blow your fucking head off. Okay. Now, for topic number 2 tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the Lord, as we say in North Carolina. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are buying into this evolution bullshit. Now, far be it from me to condemn anyone for their faith. The problem is that the people that believe in the evolution bullshit don't know they've got faith. But they got a faith. And their faith is actually more anti-scientific than Christian faith. Now, well, let's slow down. Sir Isaac Newton was a Christian. And he's the one that wrote the law of universal gravitation, which is the inverse square rule, which dictates that all the galaxies of the universe and everything that's going on in the universe, it ain't gravity. I'll put it politely. Don't mind the dog. What is affecting the universe is electromagnetism. It has a 30-second power, 10 to the 32nd power, more control over what's happening at a distance than gravity does. For an example, if I've got a golf ball here with me, and 7.5 miles away I've got another golf ball, how much gravity is affecting the two? Can you tell me? It ain't much. I mean, we can acknowledge that because the distance between the two is 7.5 miles. Square that, you got 49 something, and it's the inverse of that. So it's actually like a reducing number. So 1 over 49 is not much. Now, let's say that my golf ball has a insanely positive charge, and your golf ball 7 miles away has an insanely negative charge. let's say that these golf balls are made out of uranium, and yours is made out of plutonium. And they're going through some kind of nuclear reaction that we don't really understand at the moment. It's all hypothetical, so just bear with me. Would you say that a nuclear weapon 7 miles from another nuclear weapon might affect the other? Duh. Yeah. That's why one star, light years away from the other, binds and they rotate around each other and they do kinds of crazy shit that we can't explain. It ain't explainable by gravity. Now, let's back away from that. That's just kind of an observation that I enjoy. Now, let's go back to evolution. What is evolution? Evolution is a lie. My first question to anybody that's an evolutionist that condemns religion is, show me your witness. Where is your witness? Where is your person that has witnessed one species become another? I don't want to hear about you saw an otter kind of favored a fox, so the fox came from the otter. I don't want to hear that bullshit. I want to see your witness. Your hard evidence that the otter begat the fox. Now, if we're all being honest, we know that don't exist. They've been following gray wolves or whatever the fuck kind of wolves they are, pardon my French, in Russia for decades, and they have selectively bred them like you wouldn't believe. They still don't have a new species. The new selectively bred wolves can still mate with the natural wolves. You know, their chromosomes still match up. Just like my English bulldog can reproduce with a Chihuahua. Despite the fact that visually they're very different animals. Now, what does that tell us? Now, there's signs. Each species is bordered, is blocked in with certain walls. Now, that doesn't mean that within those walls that there can't be radical differences. My English bulldogs versus Chihuahuas. You know, no rational person would say that there's anything about a Chihuahua that favors an English bulldog. But DNA-wise, chromosomally, they very much favor each other. Because a Chihuahua can inseminate a bulldog, and vice versa. Now, what you get may not be very attractive, but it's possible. Just as the original wolves that were taken, domesticated and turned into domesticated canines, can reproduce with domesticated canines. But yet there are other animals, squirrels can't, otters can't. Why is that? You know, that seems a lot more like a Bible passage in Genesis that each animal was built according to its type than it sounds like evolution. Because evolution would say with a common ancestor, all things would be able to reproduce. Now, as a human, I know that I have a common ancestor with other humans. I can reproduce with other humans, but I can't reproduce with an ape. But evolutionists say that apes and humans have a common ancestor. Now, if we have a common ancestor, there should be some lowest common denominator in our DNA that we should be able to reproduce, produce viable offspring of some third species, doesn't exist. It's not real. That's my first point. My next point is even worse if you believe in evolution. Namely, that evolution violates every law of physics we know. Thermodynamics, information sciences, just common sense. Okay, let's say we got a pool. It's the primordial soup. And in this primordial soup, we have all the building blocks of life. We've got it all through whatever process. I apologize for the jump cut, but you're going to get another one, unfortunately. Okay, so you've got this primordial soup, and it's got all the building blocks of life, all the amino acids, all that stuff is ready. Now, as somebody that has forged metal before, I can tell you one thing. Any kiln capable of forging metal is also capable of destroying it, unless an intelligent creator pulls the metal out at the opportune time. I told you were getting another jump cut. Okay. Although, since I'm done with the firearm, cheers. This is Crown and Coke. This is not just any Crown. This is XR, which I don't even know what that means. But all I know is that I would love to hold a debate with Dr. Randomer Cam. If you guys have never heard of him, you should look up his channel. He's good stuff. My only problem is he's an atheist. And atheism is an accurate term because they're without theology, but they're not without a God. And I can prove it. Listen to an atheist talk about evolution. What do they say? They say, well, evolution chose that this or that or this other thing was going to be better than the other. Wrong. 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 Thank you, girl. Said the Bulldogs agree. It's wrong. Evolution can only exist in randomness. Now, what do we know about random? Random is without pattern. Random is without intelligence. Random is without purpose. In fact, it took decades before scientists were able to even come up with a random list of numbers that actually fit those qualifications. Now, let's say you got a fish. Let's skip ahead. Okay, my last example, I was talking about the primordial soup. Let's skip ahead. Let's say you've already got a fish. Now, you need the fish to become a land animal. Now, you and I, as intelligent beings, know that the fins need to turn into appendages. And these appendages need to be able to crawl around on dry ground. Unfortunately, evolution is your point of view. Those appendages might become donuts. How do you know? It's random. It could be anything. The appendages could become eyeballs. Can you walk around on eyeballs? I don't think so. Here's another thing. Let's go even further. The eyeballs. Let's say you've got some kind of multicellular organism. And it needs to be able to see. How does it know it needs to be able to see? How does evolution, as a non-sentient random process, know that the very next thing needs to be sight for this creature to advance? Why wouldn't it come up with a horn? Would a horn help it if it can't see? No, because a horn's only useful if you can see and you can impale your enemy. Here's another thing. For evolution to have worked and created a human being as complex as we are, it would need a 100% batting average. It would actually need better than a 100% batting average. In fact, in the entire age of the universe, for 6 useful mutations to have occurred, it would take that long. Just using random probability. Now, can you say that a human being only requires 6 useful mutations? No. It takes millions, if not trillions. Because not only do you need a multicellular organism, you need a multicellular organism where they all work together. And then they need to start producing organs. And on and on and on. There's no way evolution can create a human being. Not only because it doesn't even exist in the scientifically defined age of the universe for that number of mutations to have occurred, but when you backtrack and look at the laws which govern this here universe, there's no law that says order comes from chaos. Order descends into chaos, not the other way around. Now, that's easy for a lot of people to dismiss, but that is the biggest hurdle for evolution. If you believe in evolution, you better be able to define how chaos produced order. In fact, how chaos produced more order than we as intelligent creatures have been able to produce to this day. In fact, if you take every version of Windows, every version of Mac, every version of Linux, you take every line of code from every program used in every single one of those, the complexity still isn't as complex as a protozoan. Because inside those little single-celled organisms, you've got these tremendous factories that are manufacturing all kinds of little parts and pieces and this and that, and taking the waste products from that other thing and reproducing, expelling it, and doing this and doing that and doing... I'm sorry. There's not even a factory on this earth that human beings have created that can compare to the factories that exist in a single cell of any living creature. Now, if that's your God, that's your God. If you worship evolution, then admit it. It takes faith. Because you're saying that this process that you can't really explain scientifically has created all this stuff that we see. You don't have a witness. You've never seen a species created out of another species. Admit it. It's just the truth. There's no scientific documented evidence of that. But guess what? I stand here as a witness of God. I'll raise my hand. If somebody says, does God exist? I'll say, yes, sir. I'll tell you my story right now. No. God's created this universe. It's bounded by certain rules. One of which is that we can't know. We can experience, but we can't know scientifically. We can't test some atom and say, oh, this right here is the God particle. This is the one that's so intelligent it created us all. Nope, doesn't exist. It can't exist. No, I will be the first to admit that's a major problem. Now, me personally, spiritually, I can say that I've experienced the positive and the negative. And it's not as clear cut as it seems. But I can tell you that through everything that I've experienced, that there is a God. And He looks out after those who look out after their selves, their faith. And He loves even those that reject Him. How can I say this? Because the laws of physics don't change. If evolution exists, the laws of physics must necessarily have changed. They must necessarily have been different at the genesis of life than they are today. But they're not. They're the same today that they've always been. And that certainty is a rock that we can hang our hat on. In fact, it's a rock that we can build our homes on. It's a rock that we can build high-rise towers on. Now, if God was as fickle as humans, or Allah, who's not a real God, by the way, and I can prove that. But if God was that fickle, then the laws of physics would be changing. But the fact that they aren't tells us that He loves us. And that no matter how bad we screw up, He's not going to pull the rug out from underneath our feet no matter how bad we deserve. And He's done it once. That's why you find seashells on top of Mount Everest. But He ain't going to do it again. At least not to some of us. Now, this is the most important part of this little presentation. And it's the hardest, because this is directed to you atheists. I believe, as a Christian, that the true atheists, the ones who say, I could believe, but I need that piece of evidence, that those will receive that piece of evidence. And when you do, you will become even more faithful than myself. You will become saints. Now, there are other atheists that they say they want evidence, but they don't care about evidence. They hate God. They blame God for the actions of men. And because of that, they're lost. I'm talking to the first group. There is proof for the seeker. And the most certain proof is prophecy. Whether you believe it or not, educate yourself on what prophecy is, so that you can be prepared that should it come true, that you will see it for what it is, and you'll have that evidence that you seek. Because the only way to prove that there is a creator above and beyond time and space is for that creator to call out the end at the beginning. And it's all written down. It's not written down in an easy way, but it's written down in a way that when it happens, you will freaking know, and you will not be without doubt. Now, don't disregard what I said. Seek it out. It'll be there. Good night, folks. And don't blow your heads off playing with the 1911.